Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 15th of August of 2025. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, and more interesting updates are ahead of us. Today is a vital and decisive day for Ukraine, for the Russian Federation, for the United States of America, for the European Union. Today we're going to see a meeting, a legendary meeting between the President of the Russian Federation and the President of the United States of America on the territory of Alaska. The meeting that will probably fix or that will resolve lots of issues that we currently see in Ukraine, in Europe, and many other different regions of the world. Very important meeting, and the Russians have already left the territory of the Russian Federation. Currently, they're heading towards Alaska. According to information we have, the Russians haven't changed their delegation. Russia will be represented by the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, by the Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, by the Minister of Defense, Belousov. Also, this meeting will be, this team will be represented by Special Aide Ushakov and by Dmitriev, the head of delegation of the Russian Federation, in talks on the territory of Istanbul. So very powerful, very strong delegation, highly represented. This is most important. When talking about the United States of America, according to information we have, since the beginning of all this entire process, the President Trump changed the delegation for several times. This morning we got several updates about the latest probably composition of this delegation. So the White House announced the composition of the U.S. delegation for today's talks with Russia. Secretary of State Rubio, Commerce Minister Lutnick, and Treasury Minister Bessent, and of course the CIA Director Ratcliffe. So these people will join Trump during this upcoming meeting. Another important thing is that later we got reported not just these people will join the meeting. Also, according to information we have, the U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is also heading to Anchorage, where Putin and Trump will hold talks. So as we can see, we have more or less mirroring delegations. The Russian Federation will be represented at the highest level, at economical level, at military level, and the United States of America will be represented at the same level, military level, political level, and economical level as well. Furthermore, very important detail that the group of the United States of America will be represented by CIA Director Ratcliffe, which means that most likely in coming days we're going to see another prisoner exchange between the Russian Federation and the United States of America. Of course, we're talking about spies, not about military soldiers that are fighting on the territory of Ukraine. We're talking about spies that were captured or arrested before the special military operation or during this process. Furthermore, right before we started making this video, we got report that the President of the United States of America was talking with the President of the Republic of Belarus, Lukashenko. He stated that the call was very productive, and most likely Trump stated that he expected that in coming days we're going to see another prisoner exchange, and Belarus can release 1,300 people, the biggest number ever since the beginning of probably the entire diplomatic process between the Russian Federation, the Republic of Belarus, and the United States of America. So very interesting. Obviously, this meeting is going to be very hot, very interesting. A lot of statements, a lot of things are ahead of us. And it seems that this coming night between the 15th and the 16th of August probably is the only night of 2025 when we shouldn't sleep. Now let's return back to Ukraine and let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 24 hours, despite the situation with all these political games, both the Russians and the Ukrainians continue attacking each other. The Ukrainians attacked Russia deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation. Lots of facilities, lots of fuel depots, ammo depots were damaged and destroyed. So we see that the Ukrainians still have some hope that they can ruin this negotiation process and to stop the meeting between the President of the Russian Federation and the President of the United States of America, but somebody should tell them that it won't happen. As for the situation on the ground, the most important updates are coming today from the South Donetsk direction, or as I call this direction starting of today, the Western Donetsk direction. If you remember, during the previous video, we discussed the situation in this area, and we were talking about this video where another Russian drone was flying above the settlement of Oleksandrohrad and how Russians were dropping lists suggesting Ukrainians to surrender. And when I saw this video, I came to the conclusion that most likely within the next 2 or 3 days, the Russians would take the settlement of Oleksandrohrad under complete control. But when I was watching this video, I didn't expect that the Russians would do this much faster. Probably several 20, 30, 40 minutes later, the several pro-Russian very reliable resources published this map, where we can see that according to some experts, the Russians answered the village of Oleksandrohrad by the morning of the 15th of August of 2025, and probably an hour or 2 hours later, the pro-Russian resources affiliated with the group of forces East published this video where we can see how exactly the Russians were attacking and fighting for the settlement of Oleksandrohrad. So we are familiar with this pattern: artillery preparation, aviation strikes, FPV drone strikes, and in the final part of this video we can see a Russian soldier that raised the Russian flag in the most northern part of the settlement. So based on this video, we colored the entire village of Oleksandrohrad and the complete Russian control. A bit later, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation also confirmed this information. So we colored huge territories. We see that the Russians have very good dynamic in this area. Let's take a look at the Russian offensive at the final stage of this Russian Western Donetsk offensive operation. This is the situation, for example, by the end of the 30th of August of 2025. This is the moment when the Russians just were before to launch their offensive operation, or maybe the Russians already launched but without any proofs and so on. By the end of the 14th of August, we colored the territory of Andreevka-Klevtsova based on the video and the report of the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation. The settlement was secured, we have proofs, and by the end of the 15th of August of 2025, the Russians took the village of Oleksandrohrad as well. So once again, by the end of the 30th of August, there were 3 villages in the western direction, in the western Donetsk direction, that were under complete Ukraine control: the village of Komsomolskaya, the village of Oleksandrohrad, and the village of Andreevka-Klevtsova. And now, by the end of the 15th of August, just the village of Komsomolskaya still remains under complete Ukraine control. But for example, today, the pro-Ukrainian mappers made their own adjustments, and according to them, during the previous several days, the Russians improved their positions towards the settlements of Komsomolskaya from the south. So based on this report, we can make a conclusion that most likely in coming 2 or 3 days, the Russians will be able to take the village of Komsomolskaya also under complete control, and the western part of the Donetsk region will be completely under Russian control and control of the armed force of the Russian Federation. And as we discussed in the previous video, now it's the most important question whether the Russians are going to move further deep inside of the Dnipro region, or the Russians will stay on their positions and they will stay along the border of Donetsk region. So I believe that's the answer to this question we're going to get after the end of the meeting between the President of the Russian Federation and the President of the United States of America. Everything depends on this, and especially it depends whether the Russians are going to move further deep inside of the territory of Ukraine, or they will stay on the current positions. Now let's move to the Pokrovsk direction. During the previous 24 hours, we haven't received lots of updates, but those updates that we got were very interesting. When talking about the area of Russian breakthrough during the previous 24 hours, nothing has been changed. The Ukrainians most likely managed to stabilize the situation in this direction. Furthermore, several sources reported that Ukrainians launched a number of counterattacks in this area that's probably allowed them to stabilize the situation even more. But several pro-Western resources reported that all Ukrainian counterattacks failed. Ukrainian counterattacks in the Pokrovsk direction seems to have failed. The decision to counterattack requiring the greater number of reinforcements from the other areas instead instead of trying to just stabilize or contain the Russian breakthrough, has now left Ukrainian defense exposed in the other directions. First of all, the author of this, let's say, article is talking about the Constantinovka direction, the Siversk direction, and the Coupin's direction, and the Liman direction, where, by the way, the Russians also during the previous 24 hours managed to improve their positions. But with this price, by paying this significant price, the Ukrainians managed to stabilize this breakthrough, at least for this moment, at least during the talks between the President of Russia and the United States of America. At the same time, we see that the Russians continue their offensive from the area of Poltavka, Popov Yar in the northern and the northwestern direction. We understand what the Russians are trying to achieve by this. They're trying to cut Ukrainians who are currently located in Vladimirovka, Shakhovo, Toretsk, and Sefika from supply and support, and at the end, all in all, to force them to fall back. As soon as the Russians are able to establish complete control over this territory, this will lead to creation of a very powerful and strong foothold of the armed force of the Russian Federation to the north of the city of Pokrovsk and to the west of the Konstantinovka-Kramatorsk agglomeration. And from this foothold, the Russians will have better chances to break through Ukrainian defense completely and basically to destroy the second defense layer of the armed force of Ukraine. But the most interesting updates are coming from the Pokrovsk agglomeration. Let's discuss them in details. Today, as you can see, we adjusted the map in Russian favor. We are talking about this polygon. Let's compare the map between the dates. This is the situation by the end of the 14th of August of 2025, and this is the situation by the end of 15th of August. We adjusted the map based on this video that was published by Ukrainian sources. Here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians with sniper rifle, and right in front of your screens we can see the mine. This is the mine, Komsomolskaya, and Ukrainians were attacking this building. So based on this video, we came to the conclusion that the Russians, as a result of their offensive operation, secured this mine completely, and Ukrainians were forced to fall back. This is very important mine because this mine allows the Russians to consolidate and to concentrate their forces before moving further in the southwestern direction towards the city of Mirnograd itself. And telling the truth, we are waiting when it happens. It seems that this is also going to happen, but most likely once again after the end of talks on the territory of Alaska. So some military experts predict that the city of Pokrovsk and the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration will fall very soon. So we are not talking about months, we are not talking about days, of course, but probably 2-3 weeks, and this territory will fall in Russian hands. Otherwise, something else will fall in Russian hands, because to stabilize the city of Pokrovsk, Ukraine needs to pay significant price. And we are talking first of all about reserves and about units and soldiers that are currently trying to slow down the Russians in the Coupin's direction, in the Siversk or in the Konstantinovka direction. So if Ukraine take units from these areas, most likely they will be able to hold the city of Pokrovsk for another 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. But then they will pay another significant price, let's say somewhere in the area of the city of Slaviansk. Now let's talk about the city of Konstantinovka. The Russians continue clearing the Kliban-Byksky pocket. There are still Ukrainian soldiers there, but today we got very interesting video published to the north of the Kliban-Byksky water reservoir. Here we can see another attempt from the Ukrainian side to escape the encirclement. They entered the forest, and then the Russians began bombing and attacking this territory with multiple launch rocket systems. So as you can see, another attempt of Ukrainians to evacuate and to escape the encirclement failed. The Ukrainians suffered huge losses. The Russians are not attacking this territory because they see that there are still Ukrainians. They just want to save their soldiers. But anyway, sooner or later, Ukrainians will not be able to hold their positions and they will be forced to fall back, otherwise to surrender. Now let's talk about the Siversk direction and the Liman direction. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians improved their positions once again. And when talking about this area, the Russians are moving every single day. And every single day we adjust the map in Russian favor. The Russians are not moving so fast as we used to see in the Pokrovsk direction in the area of the breakthrough. But the most important is that the Russians are moving. So right now in front of your screens, we can see how exactly the map has been changing since the beginning of another wave of Russian offensive offensive operation in this direction. Once again, every single day we were adding more and more territories under complete control. As for the end of the 15th of August, the Russians encircled the settlement of Shandrigolova, and the Russians encircled the village of Kolodzy. The next target are the villages of Dirilova, Dobrushova, and Stavki, which are already the outskirts of the entire city of Liman. As for the Coupin's direction, during the previous 24 hours, we've been waiting whether the Russian resources or Ukrainian resources will publish additional details about another Russian breakthrough to the east of the city of Kupinsk, but nothing has been published, just one video published by the Russian side, which most likely is already archived. Here we can see how Russians, using FPV drone, attacked the abandoned vehicle in the fields to the east of Petropavlovka, and nothing more. So this video can't tell us for sure whether the Russians control this area or the Ukrainians control this territory. So anyway, as for now, we keep this area as is, without additional changes, especially without confirmed changes. We are waiting for additional updates because once again, more and more sources are saying that indeed there is a breakthrough of Ukrainian defense. So the Russians continue advancing. So as for now, we are waiting for just changes and some updates. Looking forward to adjust the map either in the Russian or Ukrainian favor. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.